There are certain games from video game history that seem almost timeless. These classics are ones that people will play years after they stop being sold retail. You get those sequels, remakes, maybe fan projects. These games just never die because they deserve it. Hi folks, it's Mac, and today on this video, 15 games I would instantly buy if they got a remake. Woohoo! Let's kick off this list with one of my favorite, maybe call it GTA clone. It's the Simpsons Hit and Run. Somewhere in the back of your head, I bet you've got this one too. A list like this isn't complete without the Simpsons Hit and Run. I mean, this game is no masterpiece by any means. It's essentially just Grand Theft Auto clone with a Simpsons coat of paint joined in by some very early 2000s jank. It is interesting to go back and take a look at the game and what it does to the Grand Theft Auto gameplay formula, because essentially it's a Grand Theft Auto nice guy version. You know, you play as a Simpsons character, you go around driving and doing missions, but instead of stealing cars and murdering people, you're basically just driving around and causing mischief. This obviously has an appeal for downloading it off of MediaFire back in 2007 or whatever, and it still holds appeal now, especially with the massive resurgence in popularity of The Simpsons, all thanks to TikTok. Plus, is there anybody out there who doesn't have a crap ton of nostalgia goggles on their face for this one? It took a novel concept at the time, like a big open-world driving game, and married it to one of the most popular licenses of all time. You really didn't see that very often, and in older times, it was really just substandard platformers that would get like a brand attached to them or whatever, you know? So this is one of those games that we probably spent a lot of time with just from checking something out and being massive fans of The Simpsons. So redoing something like this game, essentially for relevancy, is a no-brainer. At number 14, Need for Speed Underground 2. All things considered, the Need for Speed series could use a big win, you know? There have been some good games recently, but let's face it, for a long time, they were really lost. Black Box Studios, who made a lot of classics, they closed down. Criterion Games, who are the makers of Burnout, took over and they did a decent job. But there is something missing from the series' glory days, where it was one of the kings of accessible, fun arcade racing. A remake of Underground 2 really could be a great dual-purpose thing, like a greatest hits of the Need for Speed franchise, and also, it just could be an incredible game on its own. Underground 2 is easily one of the best in the entire series. It's hard to quite put your finger on why. Like, compared to the first or a lot of the other games at the time or before, it's not like it did anything revolutionary. It's really just a refinement of the Need for Speed formula. But there is something kind of subtle that makes it stand out. We feel like a lot of it comes down to that soundtrack. We're really riding high on nostalgia here, but the music really did define this game in a lot of ways. And you know, racers can kind of be defined by their soundtracks. Anyway, doing a licensed soundtrack with a remake is also kind of extraordinarily hard because of all the music rights. So realistically, if a Need for Speed Underground 2 remake actually ever happened, it probably wouldn't be the same. And that nostalgia hit wouldn't be there unless they completely overhauled all the music. But at least they could fix the ludicrous monologues by that Brooke Burke lady as the announcer. Next, over at number 13, Prototype. This series is right up there with Infamous as one of the best superhero games ever. The first entry especially is an amazing game, and it absolutely deserves a remake. Now, I'm not saying it's aged poorly in any particular way. It's not ugly, it's not unplayable or anything like that. It's not busted as hell, although its sequel was when it launched, but it is a little on the older side. The controls and some of the physics don't feel as good as modern games, but the heart of the game is just as fun now as it has ever been, you know, like a big open-world power fantasy where you unleash ridiculous, mostly godlike abilities on just unsuspecting dumb civilians. It's Grand Theft Auto, but you're the Hulk and the Flash and Superman all rolled up in one. Well, those three guys, like if they had a kid, basically, but he was an absolute monster because the powers here are really gross too. They wouldn't mesh well in a big crossover, but with this central character, it was cool, you know, consuming people and shape-shifting into them, using blade arms and giant fists to smash tanks. You even eventually get like this devastating into-the-world attack that can send shockwaves through the ground or explode enemies all around. It is a lot of chaos and a lot of fun, and there's really kind of nothing else like Prototype. It's a game that was set during the late 2000s open-world gold rush, but they still made something really special, so that's why we'd like to see it come back, just with super updated bells and whistles and maybe a little bit more New York City. Next over at number 12, Jet Set Radio. This is another one of those games where just literally everybody on the planet wants a remake or thinks a remake is good. It's one of the most stylish, unique games of its era. It was originally released in 2000, and it looked and felt so much different than anything at the time. And that's still true, even now. Plenty of games have tried to capture the vibe, but no one has quite hit it out of the park like the original, except for maybe Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, which was released last 2023. That is why it would be absolutely awesome for a proper ground-up remake of this one. Playing this now, can it be rough? It's nice that the game, for as simple as it is, didn't have a lot of just obscure technical whiz-bangs to make it work. So it is actually emulatable, and we've actually played it a few weeks ago, but like I said, it's rough and really need a lot of work. A lot of the appeal of the original comes from graphics and sound, and that's hard to translate on a modern screen. Where a lot of Dreamcast games captured a kind of proto-2000s aesthetic, Jet Set Radio was one of those games that made entire generations of kids actually want to try graffiti and tag things up. The sequel is just as good. We'd be happy for a combo remake of both games or something, but if we had to choose, it's gotta be the first and original Jet Set Radio. It really just did something that captured our imaginations, and the idea of doing that again with modern technology and systems to take advantage of is awesome. Next over at number 11, we have Tenchu Stealth Assassins, or well, just Tenchu in general. A lot of these old stealth games could really benefit from a remake because while they do hold up in a lot of ways, stealth game mechanics and open world mechanics have progressed a ton. The basic concept behind these games is still solid. It's an adventure game with things like items, gear management, story, some fun characters, and most importantly, of course, stealth action. And in an era before the stealth genre was established and set in their ways with like a Kodak call, here comes Tenchu Stealth Assassins, this game where you played as an authentic ninja coming out and getting the job done and then disappearing into the shadows. Like, obviously it's super simple compared to a game like Hitman, for example, but that doesn't make it any less fun. The nostalgia here for this one is very much strong. The stealth kills are especially cool at the time, like seeing an enemy's head getting sawed off or like stabbing a sword down their throat through the top of their head or something. Like, it was really, really flashy, violent, and fun to play, and that gameplay holds up. Still, the game still could really benefit from just being better. The Tenchu series is one of those ones we'd really like to see try again. Like, we want another stab at it, essentially. Not necessarily like a sequel or a remake, but just something. Maybe even like a AAA game that takes some cues from the series, but has deeper systems and mechanics and a bigger world and a better narrative and all that crap. If we never do get that, then we'll settle for a remake of Tenchu Stealth Assassins. Next over at number 10, it's Chrono Trigger. I mean, if you're a fan of these types of games, you probably saw this one coming. Arguably one of the greatest JRPGs of all time, I'd say, because I'm not a huge JRPG guy, and I still played Chrono Trigger, and I also think it's one of the greatest games of all time, so everybody wins here. There are a lot of JRPGs out there, and a lot of these games are great, but Chrono Trigger is an RPG for everybody, including people that don't usually like these games. There is no other game that has the simple appeal of this one here. There's just something special about it. The real-time transitional battles that happen directly in screen with no random encounters. There's the distinct time travel story gimmick that allows for some really unique situations, combined attacks where different party members combine their special abilities together for devastating effects. The impressive soundtrack, the art design by Akira Toriyama, everything is just the best it could be. Now, while I think 3D visuals would kind of ruin the unique look of this game, I feel like some of the magic that makes Chrono Trigger stands out probably would remain intact over an awesome remake. The recent Final Fantasy Pixel remasters, while not full-on ground-up remakes, at least prove Square Enix is paying attention to some old stuff. So hey, maybe just hang on to a tiny shred of hope.
Born of innocence, fueled by pride, was the greatest and most terrible of them all.
Next over at number 9, we have Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones. Usually with a list like this, it starts with the first game. But with this list, I'm gonna hedge my bets, and I'm gonna choose the third game, The Two Thrones. Really, some of the best stuff from the Prince of Persia games, it is in this little franchise right here. And specifically with The Two Thrones. The meat of the game, the stuff everyone actually cares about, the platform and the wall running stuff, the traps, the puzzles, they're all as good and challenging as ever with The Two Thrones. It's a little bit of a tougher game, with a little bit of a more elaborative, ornate castle setting, but the stuff I love it for, and the stuff I want to see this series come back for, is the weird stuff. The things you do that mess with the core formula, and this game has a lot of the best ideas all rolled into one. For a third entry, the quality is still just as good as the first, but they added fun things like the chariot races, and the traps are even more deadly, and you're better equipped to actually deal with the traps, which in turn makes them more fun. Also, this game had a cool hook where you could turn into this dark prince, this kind of alternate version of yours, and that introduced its own kind of little unique mechanics and weird narrative bits. We will say the narrative stuff in the Two Thrones is a little bit out there. The initial trailer also made the game seem like it was way more serious and hardcore than it actually ended up being. Back when they made trailers that sometimes have very little to do with the actual games, I mean, they still do today, but it was really frequent back in my day. Regardless, the Two Thrones is still awesome, and I'll take a remake of this entry, any of the other sequels, the original, or the really, really classic old games, really anything Prince of Persia.
Wait a minute. If my show hadn't have funded this expedition, you wouldn't have...
You got your story, lady.
Look, Mr. Drake, you signed a contract.
Next over at number 8, Uncharted Drake's Fortune. I know seeing a game like this on a list like this is a little weird, but I mean, man, it's been almost 2 decades. The original Uncharted, it's an old game now. I know that might make you feel old. It makes me feel old too, but just breathe through it. Now, yes, the original is still awesome. You can still play it in the Nathan Drake collection. It holds up mostly well, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't the most dated of all the Uncharted games, and it's not just because of the visuals. I mean, the shooting sections fall a bit flat, even though there is some great exploration. There are a lot of elements of the story, and just the cast and crew that are still not quite there yet. It's just, the admissions, it's a little rough around the edges, but still with the DNA of what would eventually become one of the best gaming adventure series of all time. It's been long enough, and just think about it, the original Uncharted didn't have as large of an audience as the sequels. Super cool if you're an older gamer, but a lot of the sequels have a lot of eyes on them. Still, to this day with teens getting new consoles and discovering them. But the original Drake's Fortune really could use some love because of that. A remake could fix some things. The game is a little infamous for having quite a large amount of shooting galleries, especially amounting to the end, which felt like everyone you met had a gun. Maybe a remake could fix some of those problems where it almost felt like Drake massacred about half the population sometimes. Either way, more pillar climbing and jungles and Indiana Jones-style action sequences, sign us up. It's a bit of a pipe dream, but it's fun to think about. Next over at number 7, Twisted Metal Black. One of the best in the series, one of the best console-exclusive games ever made. Black was really special for PlayStation 2 owners. The game serves as the first reboot of the franchise, and it's honestly pretty surprising how mostly good it is, at least compared to when it was released. Going back and playing it now, it's a little janky, but giving the game a fresh coat of paint with a remake would be an instant win. And yes, I'd spend most of my days driving around as Mr. Grimm. I love Black specifically because it gave the series this weird, dark atmosphere and really leaned into it. It felt primarily inspired by the Crow movies and Underworld maybe, which gives it this real gritty grunge feel. Unfortunately, it also meant that Sony didn't want to bite the hand that fed it anymore, so they just kind of abandoned it. Honestly, I think this one didn't do too well in terms of sales. Still, there's something about Black that really sets it apart, and I'd love to see the series execute some of those qualities again. The dark atmosphere, the 7th grade-ass stories and lore, the moody dynamic camera angles during races, and the cheap-sounding guns and raw impacts of missiles and machine gun bullets to the side of your fenders. No other game could really pull this off like Twisted Metal Black, and a remake would be great to see.
Hey, you're no zombie!
Now over at number 6, we have TimeSplitters Future Perfect. Now TimeSplitters is known for not having much of a narrative thread, but that's kind of a part of its appeal. But still, with the third entry, they still managed to make something that was even more fun and interesting. Future Perfect, it's a stupid name, but what it is essentially a greatest hits of the old PS2 and classic arcade-style first-person shooter action combat mechanics with a story spanning multiple time periods. And they made a story out of a story that previously didn't really have much story. Look, I know I said story a lot there and I probably sound like a crazy person, but I just want to see more TimeSplitters. Any of them will do. These games have all tracked very well with our audience. You guys love your retro FPS games. Future Perfect, though, is probably the best place to get started at least, It's one of the most unique FPS games out there, and the most polished in the TimeSplitters series at least, with a campaign that takes you through World War I battlefields, to an old mansion inspired by the map from GoldenEye, to a training facility that's a clear nod to Metal Gear. Future Perfect is just so much fun, and just filled to the brim with references and style. This was a novelty back in the day, and it's an even bigger novelty now. We need more of these fun, hyperactive shooter games. Look, we know there's stuff going on with TimeSplitters for the future. There's an announcement of a studio being established to revive the series, but coupled with all the Embracer Group nonsense, who knows if it's still happening or if any plans have changed. All we can say, though, is that we're hoping for whatever it takes. Just get TimeSplitters, the series, out there to a new audience. More people need to experience this weirdness.
Ah, Mr. Marston. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. I met up with your friend, Seth.
Next over at number 5, Red Dead Redemption. Last year, Rockstar surprised a bunch of people, but maybe not in the best way, by releasing Red Dead Redemption, the first one, on PC. After years and years of avoiding a real PC release, they finally did it. But it wasn't exactly what everyone was hoping for mostly. It was just a remaster of kinds of the OGs, so the controls were still weird and clunky, and everything from the sound to the graphics looked old. The gunplay wasn't quite as good as Red Dead Redemption 2, the world was a little bit more boring, but still, the spirit was there, the beating heart of the experience was still there, and people who managed to get through some frustration or lack of things like autosaving found an amazing classic game still mostly intact, but I say mostly. Wouldn't it be incredible if they actually took the step beyond that and actually did a full ground-up remake of Red Dead Redemption? Just doing what they did with the remaster isn't much of a leap. I mean, Red Dead Redemption is built on the bones of Grand Theft Auto 4, a game that has always looked kind of just okay. Now imagine rebuilding the first RDR with Red Dead Redemption 2 technology and sophistication, maybe even adding a few additional little bits of story to smooth things over between the two games, hell, even expanding it if they wanted, piling on some other systems, hunting, eating, whatever. The bones that Redemption 2 on are the bones that Redemption 1 deserves. And man, I'm saying the word redemption a lot. Even if they do nothing else just to get that smooth animation, the more responsive shooting, the added depth to how the world works from the sequel and put that into the original, hell yeah, we'd take that. Remaking Red Dead Redemption could look incredible. Plus, there's all those other reasons, like the serious health of preserving the game and keeping it accessible for the future, all that. But again, even if they're hard to get met, others just really good to have anyway. Next, over at number 4, we have Transformers Fall of Cybertron. This is another one where, like, any game from this franchise would be incredible. But Fall of Cybertron is one of the series' best. A series which surprisingly had a lot of games, like people always forget they made a ton of these. But really the main one you'll probably hear FPS fans and Transformers fans talking about is Fall of Cybertron. But really all those games really deserve remakes, especially considering those last-gen versions, like around PS3, Xbox 360, were all removed from Steam, the PlayStation Store, and Xbox Store. And really, there are no signs of them at all returning in any way, shape, or form. Xbox backward compatibility really saved a lot of other games, but not these. So these are essentially brilliant classic games rotting away in history, and they deserve so much better than that. Even if you're not an Optimus Prime fanboy, or a fan of the Decepticons, and you get what I'm saying, nobody's gonna understand that reference. Anyway, these are some of the best Transformers-focused media out there. Like, we'd actually put these above, like, some of the Michael Bay movies. Am I out of line for saying that? I don't know, I think these things are fantastic. I know it's a video game, comparing it to a movie is stupid, but what I'm saying is that, like, these things are full and through Transformers stories. Of course, made by High Moon Studios' legendary FPS developers, the games capture the unique aspects of the Transformers and make them really fun and make them into good games. So you're not just swapping cars and planes, you're flying around a Cybertranian landscape. And we think that these games would really truly benefit from some modern graphics, new mechanics, all that jazz. It would just be a shame if these games were left to linger in obscurity. There's some of the best Transformers stuff out there, and they deserve the mainstream eyeballs on them. Man, they do, especially after all the hell they gave Paramount for making those movies on Geology. Those look terrible. Now down at number 3, you probably saw this coming, Left 4 Dead. There's something about the very original Left 4 Dead we still love. I know Left 4 Dead 2 is still kicking, and it's got the original maps, and they play just fine. But there's still a more raw, scary, oppressive quality to those original Left 4 Dead maps made specifically for the first game. It feels more horror movie than the sequel's kind of goofier 1970s action movie thing, but hey, still, if they're gonna remake Left 4 Dead, they would probably remake Left 4 Dead 2 as well. Now, of course, a lot of the mod scene for Left 4 Dead, keeping it just like making it look super clean, really frames it as like one of the best models to follow from remakes. A lot of modders did some really incredible work with these games, and Left 4 Dead 2 specifically has a built-in rendering system designed to break down the maps. So fan levels, even like the original, look really, really good. Still, seeing what money and experience behind a redo could be really amazing. Valve has rebuilt their games in newer engines before. We did get Half-Life Source back in the day, but imagine if they just went whole hog with a full remake. It'd be hard to improve on the gameplay. I do think it's perfect. Don't change it, but they could add new stuff like anything new, new features, new survivors you can swap to, new guns, new modes, whatever, anything. Although if they did add something, they'd have to like overhaul that stuff to add survival mode to all the maps. Man, that mode was way too much fun.
Welcome to Bullworth Academy. I'm sure you'll be very happy here. Very happy indeed.
Now down at number 2, we have Bully. Of course, there are a lot of Rockstar ground-up remake opportunities, but I settled on Bully for this one because I feel like it gets talked about less, but the people that do talk about it are obsessed with it, like me. Bully's one of my favorite Rockstar games of all time. Still, to this day, I know I bring up Vice City a lot here, San Andreas, and a couple others, even though we got those weird definitive editions maybe a little bit better smushed into one, still would make for an incredible remake, but I wish for the best whenever I'm rubbing a magic lamp or blowing out my birthday candles. I just want a Bully remake or something Bully to happen. This is such a unique crossover. Rockstar's sandbox formula works for so many things, including a kid living in a prep school, and all the open-world shenanigans you would expect totally are here. Richly detailed world filled with quirky characters, you can interact with small or large ways, some of the coolest missions, some of the really rewarding, smaller, simpler side stuff in this game. The seasonality, how the whole school changed, plus the world beyond the school and the facade. It is incredible. Another game that could really benefit from all the new systems and ideas in the Grand Theft Auto 5 engine built up from scratch. It'd actually be really cool to see Rockstar pull this off. This is one of their less controversial games, but it was kind of a sleeper hit. I know many people played this back in the day, but let's admit it, new gamers tend to skip it because of the graphics. A remake makes complete sense to broaden the game's reach for new players.
Passenger, show us your hand. Get down on your knees.
Now at number 1, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Now this is definitely a big one of the biggest games that would absolutely make millions cry for joy and pay money if a proper remake happened. Of course, we have to say proper remake because we did get a pathetic remaster in the form of Grand Theft Auto The Trilogy, respectfully and affectionately known as the Defective Edition. Yeah, those didn't go very well, but we are talking like a full-on, ground-up, faithful Final Fantasy VII Remake-style remake here, and that's why it's in the number 1 spot on this list, because a full-on, serious, legitimate Grand Theft Auto San Andreas remake with unbelievable next-generation graphics would be literally mind-blowing. I don't need to say it, but I'll just say it for the sake of it. The world is cool and expansive. The idea of living a life in this California-inspired world in Los Santos between Grove Street being a good guy and just a scumbag on the streets. Look, I don't need to say why this game is interesting. So many people have played the hell out of San Andreas. See, remaking San Andreas isn't an easy feat, but if somebody could pull it off, if they could do it, it would probably sell way more copies of GTA 6, maybe. Either way, that's just number 1 here. We're saying games we would buy instantly if they got a remake, and San Andreas is just oozing through our veins. It was actually my first Grand Theft Auto game, so that's why I treat it that way. But if we are going to do a follow-up list, I definitely see GTA 3 or Vice City making the list. I love those games too, and they probably actually would be a little bit easier to remake now that I'm thinking about it. But still, let us know what you think in the comments. What games you want to see totally revamped?